Hard blow for Carlos Alcaraz at Queens. The Spanish tennis player loses his main coach for this tournament, Juan Carlos Ferrero, and Samu Lopez steps in to take his place. Carlos Alcaraz faces an important challenge at Queens. The Spanish tennis player has chosen this ATP 500 to make his debut on grass and gain rhythm on this surface ahead of Wimbledon, where he is also one of the top contenders for the title. He won here in 2023, although last season he fell in the quarterfinals against Jack Draper. Therefore, this year he has the opportunity to advance and gain important ATP ranking points. The world number 2 has started this tournament with good sensations after defeating Adam Walton in his London debut. Despite resistance from the Australian, Carlos managed to win in 2 sets. However, the Spaniard will have to cope with a significant absence in his team for this competition, none other than the absence of Juan Carlos Ferrero. Carlos Alcaraz loses Ferrero at Queens. The Mercian tennis player will be without the support of his main coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, at Queens. The former Valencian tennis player is Alcaraz's right-hand man in tennis and was a key piece in his great comeback at Roland Garros, which allowed him to become a Grand Slam champion again. However, after such intense weeks, Ferrero steps aside and hasn't traveled with the Mercian to London. In his place, Samu Lopez will assume the role of head coach for Carlos, as has already happened several times this year, all of them very satisfactorily. The Alicante-based coach led from the bench in the first 2 tournaments that Alcaraz won this season, first in Rotterdam and then in Monte Carlo, so expectations are high for Queens. The goal for a player like him is to come to tournaments to win, but being aware that the important thing is to keep preparing and accept that it won't be easy after such a long clay court season and now a surface change. There's the week in between to adjust things and then Wimbledon. I'm sure he'll arrive well prepared, Lopez said before Alcaraz's debut at Queen's Club. Carlos Alcaraz's next challenge is Spanish, Jaume Munar. To continue building form and competing for the title, Alcaraz will face fellow Spaniard Jaume Munar in the Queen's round of 16. Thus, the national clash that Davidovic's withdrawal had prevented will take place. Munar arrives at the match after Jordan Thompson withdrew from their first round encounter. The advice from Rafa Nadal that Carlos Alcaraz hasn't forgotten: don't see tennis as an obligation. Carlos Alcaraz, who continues strongly in the Queen's tournament after defeating Adam Walton 6-4, 7-6 and having recently won Roland Garros, hasn't forgotten some of the best advice given to him by Rafa Nadal. In a quick Q&A with GQ magazine, the Mercian recalled the best piece of advice the Mallorcan has given him: that I shouldn't see tennis as an obligation. That I should do it to improve and get better, but not out of obligation. Advice that, without a doubt, has stayed with the Mercian, who appears to be putting it into practice, as he seems to enjoy himself on the court and has had a great clay court season. Alcaraz also answered other questions such as who he thinks is the best player in Real Madrid's history. The tennis player, a known fan of the club, had little doubt in his answer: I think Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm a big fan of his, so him. Superman would be cool, he said laughingly when asked which superhero he would be. He believes We Are the Champions is the perfect song to celebrate something. When asked whether he'd rather be a Formula One driver or a football player, he hesitated but eventually chose the latter. Now, Alcaraz must focus on his next match against fellow Spaniard Jaume Munar, which will take place on Thursday, June 19, in which he'll aim for victory to continue moving toward the title. Carlos Alcaraz also denounces threats received on social media. Some messages are even scary. It's a real plague for all tennis players, threatening messages on social media, a problem mostly derived from the betting market, about which Carlos Alcaraz also spoke out on Tuesday. The Spaniard, who beat Adam Walton on Tuesday in his Queen's debut, talked about social media and said that he has sometimes received very wild messages that are even scary. After the win against Walton, Alcaraz commented on the current state of social media following a report from the WTA and ITF that stated female players received about 8,000 threats in 2024 through those platforms. You get a lot, and it's a shame to receive those messages. Nowadays, social media is a very important tool, for work and many things, but it's also a double-edged sword because many people can reach you. When things don't go well, when you lose early, or matches you shouldn't lose, that's when people leave their comments, Alcaraz said. Some are positive, some encourage you, but others are very extreme. I won't say exactly what messages I've received, but some are very heavy and even scary, making you question many things. That's a shame, he added. Alcaraz will return to the court this Thursday against Jaume Munar, whom he has faced 3 times on the tour, with a record of 2 wins and 1 loss. Jaume is a great competitor. Some might think his style suits clay better, that he feels more comfortable on it. but the competitiveness he has inside is incredible. That's what allows him to compete well on all surfaces. We've played and trained together, and we're going to try to improve the things we didn't do well today, be more comfortable on grass, and we'll see how it goes, he said. Drastic change for Carlos Alcaraz just hours before debut. Alcaraz opens with a solid victory. The Mercian star began the grass season with a win over Australian Adam Walton, 6-4, 7-6. Doubts about Carlos Alcaraz's form after his dazzling win at Roland Garros and celebration in Ibiza were put to rest with a convincing performance in his Queen's opener against Australian Adam Walton, winning 6-4, 7-6, 4. It was a strange match, as Alcaraz found out just 4 hours before the match that he would not be facing his countryman Alejandro Davidovich, who withdrew due to illness, but instead Walton, who entered the draw as a lucky loser. He didn't allow any more surprises and showed he's in great shape, that he took care of himself during his vacation, and that his adaptation to the grass swing is going as planned. Hug with Hewitt. Despite having only 5 grass matches in his career, Walton is a player well acquainted with the surface, since Australia has more grass courts than probably any other country in the world. Given his unfamiliarity with this opponent, Alcaraz sought advice from his compatriot Jordan Thompson during a warm-up session on one of Queen's outdoor courts just hours before the match. Had he known about the matchup earlier, perhaps he could have also asked Lleyton Hewitt, Wimbledon champion and former world number 1, whom he hugged earlier in the day at Queen's. The Australian, now working with his country's tennis federation, congratulated the Spaniard for his victory in Paris. Strong on serve. The chat with Thompson paid off. Alcaraz played a flawless first set, especially on serve, losing only 4 points. On return, he gradually found his rhythm. He needed 7 games and 3 break chances to break the Australian, who played aggressively and on the baseline, knowing it was the opportunity of a lifetime. When Alcaraz dominated, there was no contest, but when Walton could strike cleanly, he found winners easily. That's what grass allows. 1 or 2 shots are enough to win a point, and a single mistake can cost you a service game and a set. 2 break points saved, and Alcaraz came very close to that. He faced 2 set points at 4-5 in the second set, which he saved with 2 great serves. He could have dropped a set against Walton's strong level. That's why adapting, maximizing time at Queen's, and getting as many matches as possible is vital, and this win, sealed in the tiebreak, lets him move forward, gain rhythm, and fine-tune his game on a surface that is only played on for 5 weeks each year. Walton, who fell after 1 hour and 43 minutes, was the first obstacle at Queen's, where Alcaraz aims, as always, to win. But the key is gaining experience. His win streak now stands at 14, including Rome, Roland Garros, and this Queen's debut. His record on grass is impressive, 25 wins and only 3 losses. Carlos Alcaraz jokes about his latest Ibiza party, "My body can't take it anymore." It's been a week since Carlos Alcaraz lifted the Roland Garros trophy after a historic final against Italian Jannik Sinner. The Mercian celebrated in style and, as he likes to do, went to Ibiza for some peace and partying. The Spanish tennis star had a great time, although he confirms, jokingly, that he only went out one night. In an interview with AFE, he talked about his Ibiza vacation after conquering Roland Garros a week ago. "It was fun, but this year was more relaxed than last year. Last year was wilder. I went out the first day, but the next 2 nights I didn't go out. I was in bed by 12 on Tuesday and Wednesday, though I did go out in the afternoon. I'm getting older, and my body can't take it anymore," Alcaraz said laughing. A tradition for Carlos Alcaraz. The Ibiza trip has become a tradition for the Spaniard, although he received criticism last year for going, as it was said to have affected his preparation for Queen's. Nonetheless, he went on to win Wimbledon weeks later and has repeated the trip this year, with many encouraging him to go wherever he pleased after his spectacular win over Jannik Sinner in Paris. There are situations where many people don't agree, where even you might think they're right. But I want to make mistakes in life. I'm happy that this year people are telling me to go wherever I want, to disconnect, because that support helps me a lot in certain situations. We learn every year, and maybe in a few years I won't be able to go, but right now, these are moments of disconnection that are good, said Alcaraz. Decisive change at Wimbledon noted by Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic. Wimbledon has announced a prize of £3 million, or €3.5 million, for the singles champions of the 2025 edition, which will be held from June 30th to July 13th at the All England Club in London. The Grass Grand Slam also confirmed 2 major innovations. In line with the general rule of the circuit, followed by all but Roland Garros, officiating will now be electronic. But the favorites for the title, including 2023 and 2024 champion Carlos Alcaraz, his defeated opponent in both finals Novak Djokovic, and world number 1 Jannik Sinner, are more focused on another change. All three aim to reach Sunday, July 13th, and if Alcaraz and Djokovic repeat, they'll have to change their habits. The schedule for the singles finals has been delayed by 2 hours, from 2 p.m. local time to 4 p.m. in London, 5 p.m. Spanish time. In case of a very long match, the roof might have to be closed and artificial lighting used, changing the playing conditions, just as happens when it rains. The men's doubles final will start Saturday at 1 p.m. local time, 2 p.m. in Spain, and the women's doubles final will be held at the same time on Sunday. The goal is to improve the experience for everyone involved. Doubles players will have more accurate scheduling, and fans can enjoy the day at Wimbledon before the matches begin. Plus, champions will be crowned in front of the largest possible audience, said Sally Bolton, CEO of the All England Club, in statements reported by AFA. According to Bolton, Wimbledon is not considering adding a 15th day to the calendar or opening on a third Sunday, as is already the case at Roland Garros. Wimbledon increases its prize money. Carlos Alcaraz could earn €1 million more than at Roland Garros. Wimbledon 2025, the third Grand Slam of the season, kicks off on June 30th. The champions will receive a hefty prize exceeding last year's, when Carlos Alcaraz beat Novak Djokovic and took home about €3.2 million. On Thursday, the tournament announced an increase in total prize money to €62.8 million, 7% more than last year and double what it awarded in 2015. Deborah Jevons, president of the All England Tennis Club, presented the 2025 edition's details at a press conference, highlighting this upward trend in prize money. Wimbledon will now award €3.5 million to its champions, 11% more than what Alcaraz and Barbora Krejcikova received last year. That's €1 million more than what Alcaraz and Coco Gauff received for winning Roland Garros just days ago. Additionally, players participating in the first round will receive £66,000, €77,500, 10% more than last year. The challenge in tennis is that players don't get the rest they want, and injuries are increasing constantly, which they talk about. We've always said that as Wimbledon, we're willing to collaborate and talk with the tours to find solutions, and that door remains open, she said, highlighting not only the financial effort. Also, singles finals are moving from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. local time on the final weekend, and line judges will be permanently replaced by live electronic officiating, a move Roland Garros resisted last month. Meanwhile, Wimbledon's major expansion project to nearby Wimbledon Park, adding 39 more grass courts, is tied up in litigation. Although construction permits were granted, a local protest group has filed a judicial review, which will be heard in the High Court during the tournament's second week.